Before dawn, the herb room is awake only in its objects. A clay water jar waits on the stone floor, close to the low table, and far enough from the path that a tired foot will not strike it. The lamp beside it is small, covered, and nearly still. The work has not begun in movement yet. It rests in water, cloth, pots, hanging stems, and the careful order of a room used by hands that know how easily fragile things can be bruised. There is no magic here. The room belongs to practical care. Water carried before light, leaves kept dry or damp according to need, jars returned to their places, cloth folded before it is asked for. Bundles of herbs hang from a beam where air can pass between them. Some stems are tied in loose cords, and some leaves have curled inward during the night. They do not fill the room with drama. They only keep the memory of gardens, weather, and patient drawing. The doorway holds a cooler darkness than the room itself. Beyond it, the passage still belongs to sleep. Inside, the lamp keeps a low circle around the water jar, the table, the shelves, and a row of small pots waiting for dawn. The stone floor has a damp mark near the jar. It is shaped like a crescent, darker at the edge where water once ran and stopped. The mark is not fresh enough to shine, but it keeps the memory of careful carrying through poor light. A folded cloth rests beside the pots. One corner is darker than the rest, stained by old water and rinsing. The cloth has been folded not for neatness alone, but so it can be lifted quickly without catching on a rim or stem. The small pots are uneven. Some have chipped lips. Some hold darker soil near one side, where yesterday's water did not dry at once. Their shapes are plain, and their plainness suits the work. Nothing here needs to look precious to be cared for. A shallow bowl sits near the cloth. The water inside it is dark in the lamp, except for one amber tremor near the rim. If the room is still enough, that tremor steadies, and the bowl becomes another quiet measure of the hour. The shelves are crowded but not busy. Clay jars, woven baskets, and folded scraps of cloth stay close to the wall. Their places are remembered by reach, weight, and habit, not by labels. A hand can find them in low light because the room has been kept the same. The air carries several kinds of dryness. Hanging leaves are dry enough to sound brittle if crushed. The floor keeps a little dampness near the jar. The cloth holds old moisture in its darker corner. The lamp warms none of these things very far. Before the first watering, the room asks for slowness. A jar must be tilted without striking the stone. A bowl must be lifted without spilling. A dry leaf must not be brushed from its stem by a careless sleeve. Even the simplest work has a pace. The water jar is heavy at the base and narrow near the neck. Its surface has a dull shine where many fingers have steadied it. Around the lower curve, clay has darkened from use. It is not beautiful in a decorative way. It is beautiful only because it has lasted. The table has a worn edge. A thin line of dust rests behind the bowl, where the cloth does not reach easily. A wooden spoon lies near the jars, its handle rubbed smooth by use. It is not there for stirring anything grand. It is a small tool for small measures. No one needs to be shown for the room to feel inhabited. The spacing is enough. The jar is where water can be lifted. The cloth is where spills can be answered. The pots are close enough to tend. The dried stems hang where air can pass. This care has the shape of repetition. It does not rise into ceremony. It is the same checking of rims, the same glance toward the floor, the same hand reaching for cloth before water moves. Repetition has made the room calm. The first hint of morning is not yet visible through the small opening. The stone there's a little colder, and the darkness beyond it is thinner than the corners. The plants do not respond to that change. They wait in their own slow time. A bundle of pale stems hangs lower than the rest. Its cord has been tied twice, then twisted around the beam. A few leaves have fallen beneath it and gathered near the wall. They will be swept later, not now. Before dawn, the room keeps its smaller messes gently. The clay jars on the shelf do not match. One is wider, one is narrow, one leans slightly because its base is uneven. Their differences make the shelf easier to remember. In darkness, a hand can know the wide jar by weight and the narrow jar by the sound it makes when moved. The covered lamp gives just enough warmth to keep the work from feeling cold. It does not turn the herb room golden. It leaves the ceiling dim, the hanging bundles half in shadow, and the floor dark, except for the place where water has marked it. A small basket holds dry leaves in a loose layer. Their curled tips point in different directions. They are not arranged for display. They were gathered, dried, carried here, and left where they can be handled without haste. The room keeps active work outside the hour. No chopping, boiling, grinding, or calling is needed. Those things may belong to another time. Here, before dawn, the work is readiness. Water waiting, cloth waiting, pots waiting, and light kept low. Near the wall, a small pot has been turned slightly away from the others. Its soil is darker near the rim. A careful person would notice it first when the watering begins, but the room does not hurry that attention. It simply holds the sign until morning asks. The bowl and spoon make a small pair on the table. The spoon's handle points toward the cloth, not because of decoration, but because that is where it was last useful. The bowl is close enough to the jar that water can pass between them without crossing the whole room. Under the hanging bundles, the air is more textured. It carries faint dust from leaves, the mineral coolness of stone, the dry scent of tied stems, and the old oil of the lamp. None of it is strong. The room is not perfumed. It is only used. A narrow line of water has dried along the table leg. It shows how a spill once found the wood and traveled down before being caught. The mark remains because use small records. No one has polished it away and no one needs to. The herb room is not a place of cures spoken aloud. It is a place where care becomes practical before anyone asks for it. A jar filled in advance. A cloth folded in reach. A pot checked before the day warms. A shelf kept steady enough for tired hands. By the middle of the night, the room feels less like storage and more like a pause in the work of tending. Everything has been left ready but not active. The water is still. The lamp is low. The stems hang without sound. The cloth keeps its folded shape. The corridor outside remains darker and less certain. A footstep that would sound hollow against stone. Inside the room, sound is softened by hanging leaves, cloth, baskets, and the small amount of water waiting in clay. The older habit of the place can be felt in the spacing. Heavy things are low. Fragile things are higher, but not too high. Water sits where it can be reached with both hands. Dry leaves are kept away from the damp mark on the floor. That order prevents accidents without announcing itself. It keeps jars from being struck, leaves from being crushed, water from traveling too far, and cloth from being searched for at the wrong moment. The room is careful before the hand returns. A few loose stems rest near the table edge. They have not been thrown away because they may still be useful, or because morning has not yet sorted them. Their presence does not make the room untidy. It makes the work feel continuous. The stone floor is cold beneath the table. The lamp cannot change that. It can only place a soft edge of warmth near the jar and the bowl. The rest of the floor remains part of the night, steady and dark under the work. As dawn approaches, the water in the bowl becomes easier to see. The amber reflection thins. The rim of the clay jar separates from the shadow behind it. The bundles overhead are still mostly dark, but their lower leaves begin to take a faint shape. The room does not brighten all at once. It gives back one object at a time. First the jar, then the bowl, then the folded cloth, then the nearest pots. The far shelves remain in shadow, and that is enough. Not every useful thing has to be seen before the first careful lift. The final minutes before watering are quiet, because the decisions have already been made. The jar is full enough. The cloth is ready. The bowl is placed. The pots are near. The dried stems hang out of reach of sudden movement. Nothing here asks to become a story larger than the room. The work is small, and its smallness is the source of its peace. Water will be lifted. Soil will darken. Leaves will be spared from rough handling. The day will begin without noise. The lamp lowers toward its last useful glow. The damp mark on the stone grows less distinct. The folded cloth keeps one corner turned toward the bowl. The water waits without ripple. A narrow shelf near the doorway holds a second folded cloth, older and rougher than the one on the table. It is not the first cloth a hand would choose, but it waits there for the kind of spill that does not deserve haste. Its rough weave catches a little lamplight, and then lets it go. The jars have been placed so their mouths do not touch. In darkness, clay can strike clay too easily. A small space between them is enough to keep the shelf quiet. That space is part of the work, though no one would name it while passing through. A small wooden peg near the beam holds a loop of cord for tying stems later. The cord is dry and slightly uneven, twisted from use. It belongs to the same slow order as the water and cloth, not needed every hour, but ready when the hour arrives. A narrow shelf near the doorway holds a second folded cloth, older and rougher than the one on the table. It is not the first cloth a hand would choose, but it waits there for the kind of spill that does not deserve haste. Its rough weave catches a little lamplight, and then lets it go. The jars have been placed so their mouths do not touch. In darkness, clay can strike clay too easily. A small space between them is enough to keep the shelf quiet. That space is part of the work, though no one would name it while passing through. A small wooden peg near the beam holds a loop of cord for tying stems later. The cord is dry and slightly uneven, twisted from use. It belongs to the same slow order as the water and cloth, not needed every hour, but ready when the hour arrives. The room also keeps the memory of hands that have learned not to hurry. The marks are not dramatic. A darker place on the jar neck. A pale scrape along the bowl rim. A softened place on the spoon handle where fingers have turned it for years. Near the pots, a little dust has mixed with fallen leaf fragments. It is not dirt in the careless sense. It is the residue of drying, carrying, checking, and returning. It will be swept when the morning has more light, not before the first work is ready. The stone wall behind the shelves holds the night differently from the table. It is cooler, flatter, and slower to receive the lamp. The hanging bundles cast uneven shadows on it, and those shadows make the room feel deeper without making it restless. A low stool waits under the table, pushed in far enough not to catch a foot. Its seat is plain and worn smooth at the front edge. It may be used later, or not at all. The fact that it has been tucked away is another small kindness in a room full of fragile things. The water jar has a faint chip near the base. It has not ruined the jar. It only gives the hand another familiar sign when lifting it. In a room worked by habit, such small imperfections become part of knowing where everything belongs. The folded cloth near the bowl has been rinsed many times. Its threads are thinner at the center, thicker along the edges. If water runs over the rim later, the cloth will darken quickly and quietly. It will do its work without drawing attention. The herb bundles are not all meant for the same use. Some are leafier, some mostly stem, some tied more loosely because they need more air. The room does not explain these differences. It simply keeps them separated enough that care can continue when light returns. Even before the first watering, the room has a rhythm. Lift, tilt, pause, set down. Touch the soil, spare the leaf, return the cloth. None of these movements has happened yet, but their order is already present in the placement of things. The passage outside may stay dark for a long while. That does not trouble the herb room. Its work begins by small measures, rather than by full daylight. A careful hand can start with the closest pot, the nearest bowl, the cloth already folded beside it. The last part of the night leaves the room with fewer choices to make. Nothing has to be searched for, nothing has to be lifted in haste, and nothing fragile has been pushed too near the edge. That is the small, quiet, practical success of the room tonight. For this last quiet stretch, the herb room has done enough by staying ready. It has kept water near the pots, cloth near the bowl, and fragile leaves in the dark, leaving the first work of morning to begin gently.